Welcome to the DMF. I'm your host, Justin Yance, and today I have a special guest. I told you I wanted to get you special guests. Well, I have one, Michael Testa of Michael Testa Casting. This is my interview with him. He is a casting director, and it is a 2-hour interview. This is part one, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, I have a special guest with me today. I have Michael Testa. He is a casting director, he is a writer, and he's also a teacher. How are you doing, sir?
Very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to have you on.
Glad to be here.
All right, cool. So the first question is I found out that you graduated from Northwestern.
Correct.
What did you major in?
I majored in radio, television, film. There was a period of time that I was going to do a minor in Russian history and Russian language.
Oh, wow.
But now I'm kind of kicking myself in the ass, kicking myself in the butt, because everything's so Russia. Everything's all Russian centric right now. So
yeah, that sounds like an. Are you familiar with the language? Did you?
No, not at all. I kind of went to school like the beginning, the middle, and I forget where, of the Cold War, and towards the end of the Cold War, I think. And it was always, Russia was always this big looming threat that was, there, sort of like now today. And so I was kind of fascinated by just trying to sort of, understand what was going on in the country and who the people were and all that. So.
Now you've.
But then when I found out the language. And the language is really difficult. I mean, it's extremely difficult. And I was just like, I'm not doing this.
It is. So, I've looked at the language. There's no article adjectives. It's very.
Yeah, and you have to, it's block lettering. It's a whole different, at least the Romance languages have a little bit of affiliation with what we do. So.
Even German, which I'm studying, has a lot, has similarities to our language. But yeah, you get to like Vietnamese and you get to Russian. It's like, oh, there's
it's like a whole different. It's like learning Chinese, which is difficult as well.
Yeah,
all different.
Very, very difficult language.
Maybe we're onto a theory why we're kind of in sort of tussle with both Russia and China. Maybe it's the languages are so different.
That could be it. That could be it. I know.
Okay. It's funny because I solve the world's crises right there.
You mentioned, it's funny. You mentioned, back in the 80s, around that time, we were, Russia was the big threat, and now it's kind of moved in. Then we moved into like the Middle East, and now it's back to Russia.
Full circle. I know.
Yeah. Next it'll be Australia.
Those people over there in Australia, an island.
How dare they have fun and be happy.
Exactly.
So you moved to LA.
Yes.
I gathered from my research, and you wanted to be in the business. Now, you said you weren't going in there to be a casting director per se.
But... No, I knew nothing about casting when I moved out to LA. I mean, everybody kind of knows it. Casting's one of those careers that people think, go get that actor, go do that, and it's so not. And so I kind of knew not a little bit about it, but when I started, it was the whole new world kind of and it's fun.
Did you go over there to be a screenwriter?
No, I just went over there, although that's kind of what brought me out there. I just wanted to be involved in the business. And I knew that sort of being involved in the business at that time meant you had to be in 2 different areas, which is probably LA and New York. And I don't particularly like New York. So it was LA for me. And I just moved out. I had written, after college, I graduated, I'm from New Jersey, went back to New Jersey and hung around and worked at an independent production company, and I became an advertising copywriter. And then a writing partner and I at that time sent out a script that we wrote, and it got bought by this very small independent production company, and they started to do it, and they had actors on tape and whatnot, and that kind of fell apart. So it whet my appetite a lot to pursue the business. So that's what made me move out.
So do you think copywriting being in that job helped you with transitioning into casting directing?
No, not at all. I mean, copywriting was something that was I mean, apparently, I mean, I was very good at it. I mean, I won some national awards, but the advertising agency specialized in real estate and banking and very sort of
Mm.
clinical kind of subject
Yeah.
areas, and so I got bored really, really quickly. Um, but no, nothing to do with it. Had nothing to do with casting. Sort of, it just made
Did
me. It kept me employed, obviously, and gave me money. But no,
did it help you with structure and being in line when you got into casting directing?
when I got into casting, the structure, I'm not a very structured person,
Hmm.
so it may have. I'm just not keen to it to identify it as that. I'm I I'm very much go with your gut, go with your instinct, and not sort of be confined by structure. And that's how I also write. I never
Hmm.
go into sort of the 3 act. I know the whole 3 act theory, and it's sort of been a
Hmm.
standard, but I just don't even. I never even think that way. I don't even write outlines when I write. So
Hmm.
I just go
Interesting.
and do it
Interesting.
and see how that flows. But
But
I've had enough practice within the industry in terms of writing, not to jump ahead anywhere, but I've read enough scripts. I've read enough, episodic television scripts and feature scripts that I kind of the structure is probably just sort of ingrained in me that I don't even think about it.
yeah, so you've already got, plus you watch a lot of films as well and
Yeah, yeah,
television, so I'm sure
I'm a big
you're like
film. I mean,
you're
I studied film.
noticing.
Yeah, I just sort of immerse myself in the profession and what comes out of the profession and just sort of go from there. I don't really try to break
So
it down.
you notice the form.
Yeah, I don't
Interesting.
like to break things down in terms of if I like it, I just sort of go and,
Yeah.
relish the surface enjoyment of things instead of trying to break it down and see why I like something. I'm not that
Mm.
person, which I don't know
So
if
some of the films I noticed that you cast was Wild Things too, which I
oh my
saw on
God,
HD
out of
Net
all the stuff I've cast, you bring that up?
10, 10 years ago. I think I like stumbled upon it on like HD Net or
The,
something. I was
sec-
like,
the
oh, what is
second ver-
this?
the second one?
The second one, and you did the third one, I believe.
I did.
It says, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
really,
Well,
I really don't. I don't
it
really
says
remember.
so much.
Oh, I probably did, but I think we kind of, if I remember correctly, now you're testing my memory here. Um, I think we almost kind of did it simultaneously, like it was sort of right quickly right after
Yeah.
it.
Well, it's
Um,
basically the same plot as the first one. They're just
yeah,
cashing in
and
on
they
it.
were straight to video kind of things in terms of
Yeah.
they weren't going to get theatrical release or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're fun. I remember the executive on that being very nice. I like him. I think he's now doing producing partners with um, the director who directed Sixth Sense and all those movies.
Oh, M. Night
Yeah,
Shyamalan.
yes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You also did LA Law, Roswell. I've
Well,
never
LA
actually
Law,
watched Roswell.
I was a casting associate on. I was never
Yeah,
doing.
you were a casting
I was
assistant.
casting associate in the very last season of LA Law.
Yeah.
And that was fun. And that also, in terms of episodic TV, that gave me a very good training in terms of working in it and doing it. It's a much different animal than it is casting features. So it's sorry, it's my phone going off. And that was fun. I remember that being very pleasant. I remember I'm really liking that lot, the 20th Century Fox lot that I was on, and
Mm.
everybody being very nice
Yeah.
um, and pleasant.
Yeah.
And then
Now,
Roswell, the
yeah.
original Roswell, I cast the 3 seasons. I cast from episode 1. I didn't do the pilots, but they were looking for a casting director for the series itself, and that's what really kind of launched my career in terms of casting, because it was a very, very, at the time, a very hot property. It was a well received and really good pilot. It
Mm.
was the WB network. It was picked up for 24 episodes, which is unheard of in terms of a new show. They usually do like, an order of like 8 or 9
Yeah.
and then
Half.
right. But it was picked up for 24, so it was guaranteed employment for, the entire year.
Yeah.
The showrunner, Jason Katims, who's a fantastic individual, was really kind of hot. He came off of My So-Called Life, I believe it was the thing he directed.
Ah. Yeah. From
And
Clara
yeah,
Danes.
Claire Danes and Jared Leto, and it was really good. So they met every casting director in television, feature film casting director for that role, really for that series. Um, and I had a casting business partner at the time, and we got sent on this meeting to meet Jason. Really, by the executive who sent us at 20th Century Fox, she was like, "You're never going to get it. You're too new. You're never going to get it." And I was like, "Well, then why the hell are we going? I mean, I'm not going to waste my
Yeah.
time. I'm not. She was like, just go. It's good practice for you guys to sort of, meet executives and whatnot. Because we really had no, you know, we'd never done a network show like that at all. Uh, and I went in and I met Jason, and we really kind of bonded over not even the TV at all. I mean, it was really just about mutual friends, and I recognized him from a party or a screen. I think it was a script reading that I put together, and he was there, and he was kind of in the corner. We just talked about that, and we just like literally for an hour we talked about nothing about the show, and we just got along really, really nicely, and very nice person. And at the end, he was like, I remember him like, let me tell you a little about the show. I'm like, I get it. It's teenage alienation. They're actually aliens. It's the whole thing. It's so, you're linking the two. And he was like, yeah. And then he asked me, what would be your overriding philosophy about casting the show? I was like, well, every single person that you see that we cast, even if it's a one-liner, you should have people going, is that an alien? Could that be an alien? That kind of thing. So I was like, oh, yeah, I like that. And that was it. And then we left, and she literally called 20 minutes later, executive, and it's like, I don't know how you did it, but you got that job. So it kind of was a lot of fun. It was, it was good. It was a good experience.
What do you think was the biggest takeaway from doing Roswell? Was there something that you just were like, I can do this?
Well, I kind of like, I mean, I hate to say, but I kind of was, a learning ground for me in terms of casting episodic TV. And, I guess there were some mistakes made, and, but it's like that in any job, really. But, it really provided a great canvas for me to sort of learn about episodic casting. And, that's sort of my big takeaway. And also too, just, again, really good people behind it. Of course, in every production there's always, somebody that's sort of a pain in the butt, and you don't get along.
Yeah,
with.
Well, yeah, of course.
Right. I mean, it happens all the time. Yeah, it's anything,
job.
right? Any But I do remember, I just always have very good feelings about that show and that experience and the people involved in it. And, there's a couple of people I still sort of maintain some relationships with, actors and crew, and but really, really, really good. So
now you mentioned when you were a casting associate, and that was like with LA Law, you had this moment where you were like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Well, that was for not for LA Law. That was for, I was my last associate job was for the pilot of Everybody Loves Raymond.
Oh yeah, you did.
And I worked for a great casting director named Lisa Miller Katz, who went on to cast the show itself. And I'll never forget. I mean, it was a great experience. Ray and Phil Rosenthal is one of the best people like in the world, and just from the personality, he's true mensch. He's just a really super nice guy. I actually worked with him as an associate on another show that he did called Down the Shore, where he was a writer producer on. So I kind of knew him a little bit beforehand, and then he was like, "Oh my God, you work on the show," and then I'll never forget, because it was Lisa and I were doing 3 shows at the time. It was the pilot, and it was Space Above and Beyond. It was the last season of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and so we cast the pilot for Everybody Loves Raymond, and it was the day of the taping, and I'm driving with a friend in Beverly Hills in the morning, going to, again, I'm going to go to the taping like at 4:30, whatever. And I pass, a crew, chopping down trees, and they had the wood chipper thing. And as I'm passing by, a piece of wood goes directly into my eye it's weird. I've never had a lot of injuries in my life at all, but like the 3 of I've had over my right eye, like all died. And so I had to go to the eye doctor, and I couldn't. She's like, here's some drops. the eyes are very the eyes are very regenerative organ. You have
Yes.
a chunk taken out of it. Go home, go to sleep, close your eyes, don't open either eye, and just ride it out for the day. So I couldn't go to the taping
So you're
of the
like the
show because
invisible
I couldn't.
man.
Yeah, because it really hurt, and every time you move your eye, you had to sleep with both eyes closed because you move the one eye, the other eye moves.
Yeah.
So like an eye patch wasn't going to work or anything like that, and so I missed it, and I said to myself, actually, as I'm laying down, like trying to recover. I'm like, I'm not. This is a sign from God telling me that move on from associate work,
Yeah.
and I did, and I made a decision that from that point on, I was never going to be an associate in casting. If I was going to work in casting, I was going to be a casting director. I don't care what comes to me. And literally, like the next couple of days, I had 3 job offers. One was for like the Marlon Brando CBS miniseries called The Last Dawn, and then it was Taylor Hackford's Devil's Advocate, the Al Pacino Keanu Reeves movie, like to go
Yeah.
work on that. And I was like, no, no, and I kept passing it.
It's funny because Steve Martin had that same moment. He was like being an opening act, and then one day
Yeah,
he's just like, "I'm only gonna be a headliner,"
right.
and he just had that. So I look
Well,
at that
I
as you kind of
think
had that same.
yeah, I think it's really, really important in your career or whatever you do is to make sort of these decisions that, because we all can get sort of stuck and complacent and
Yeah,
happy in sort of positions that we are. But if you want something more, you have to sort of disrupt yourself a little bit. You have to sort of, make these decisions and I'm a firm believer of sticking by your decision,
yeah.
at least give it a try for a bit. Yeah, I mean, if I hadn't, moved on as a casting director in a year, I mean, it'd be much different,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you have to
Can
do that stuff.
can you explain a little bit of the difference between the casting associate and the casting director?
Well, yeah, one's more position and more money than the other. But no, a casting associate sort of, can be, it all depends on who they're working for. It could be
Mhm.
as creative as sort of running a show themselves over and being overseen by the casting director, or it could be just sort of making lists and helping out and taping and so
Can you get us the coffee?
no, I would never do that. I mean, I would never do that to myself.
That's an
I won't
That's
even do
an
that.
intern.
I won't do that to an assistant either. I just,
Yeah.
get up and get your own damn coffee is what that's my but it all depends. It's sort of like, it's the right hand of a casting director to help out and,
Mm,
but you also have to, make sure you have the right associate under you who shares similar taste, who has relationships that they can go ahead and, talk to agents or managers or executives about things without you being there if you're, caught between projects or, you know,
yeah.
out one day or something. So yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
I also saw that you did Make It or Break It. You did
Oh my
Cold
God.
Case, Powerless, which didn't last long, but I thought it was an interesting premise.
It was,
Powerless.
I think it was what it was for that show. It was, again, another pleasant experience. Um, I don't think the show was as DC or sci-fi enough for all the sci-fi geeks who are going to watch it. And everybody else
Mm,
who kind of just wanted to enjoy a comedy was just like, what? Why are people flying around in capes? I don't understand. So
mm.
it never took for me like a powerful position on either side that it was going to find an audience. So there was a very good cast and very good people. And, it was fun. It was another fun show to do.
Do
And
you think
Alan
it would have
Tudyk,
worked if you had more of? Yeah, Alan Tudyk
I
is
don't
an
know.
amazing
Alan
actor.
Tudyk's a genius. I did the second season of a digital series called Con Man that he created with Nathan Fillion, and that was a great experience. Um, Everybody just go
Yeah.
out and see whatever Alan Tudyk is doing. So that's
Do
my
you
little.
think Powerless would have worked if they had existing properties
Woulda, coulda,
to
shoulda. I don't know.
play it
Yeah,
around so that yeah, I know
no,
this.
yeah. There's no run. Listen, if I had, an inside track of why shows make it or don't make it, I'd be living in,
Yeah.
Hawaii in another huge mansion, and because no one knows that stuff.
What motivates you when you're casting? Is there something that like hits you and you go that is there something that I don't know how do you work?
How do I work?
Yeah, how
Well,
do you
what do you mean
work? Like,
motivates me in terms
is
of
there
what? In
something
terms of
that
picking
like,
actors, picking projects, getting up every
you
day?
know, both. It's more of an open-ended question, but yeah, is there something that like you just go,
Well, in terms of projects, I find I try to pick projects that I would watch, you know,
"Hmm,
that I like, that are well written, obviously. And now, I've been doing this for so long and had some, I guess, some degree of success. Um, it's all about the people involved. Are they nice? I'm not at a place now where I'm not dealing with any schmucks. I'm not dealing with anybody who's got overinflated sense of who they are, what they're doing. And there's a
yeah,
reality that I think, a lot of people need to have in terms of what they're doing and who they are and their place in it. So I really kind of look for, is it easy? Is it going to be a pleasurable experience? That's now that, that was always a factor. I was like, maybe number 5 or 6 on the list of things, but now it's really neither one or two, quite frankly. And the money
so
depends on,
so the experience, so
experience. Right,
I
right, right.
need to like the people I'm working with. That's great.
Yeah, and now, before it was easy, but before, when I was, I guess in my heyday, when I was doing, so many projects, I was always lucky enough that I always did episodic and films together. So I was able to choose films that were really kind of small that I liked and weren't paying me a lot of money because I had the other money coming in from episodic, and so it made my life a lot easier. So it also depends on where you are and what station we're on your life and your career in terms of what you choose to do. Right now, a really cool indie film, I have to think twice about it because well, before it was like Office Space, and hey, they can't pay you for Office Space, so I'm actually losing money doing it. But nowadays, with self tapes and the internet, I think those things can come back, and I can do those some more even for sort of less money. In terms of actors, I never quantify that. It's sort of, I go by my previous statement by being very, very instinctual. I don't want to define what I like in an actor simply because if I do, I feel like I'm going to lose it and not sort of feel it. So I just kind of
Yeah.
like go how I'm feeling that day. And that feeling is really guided by a lot of things. It's guided by the actor themselves, the material that I'm casting, my mood that day. So there's so many factors that go into reason why I do or do not like an actor, and in terms of what they do. And I'm pretty open-minded about, I don't really, my judgment sort of the first time I meet somebody is pretty clear and concise if I like them. If I don't, I sort of give them the benefit of the doubt and say, oh, they're probably having a bad day. I don't want, because
Yeah.
it is their careers, their hopes and dreams. And I don't want to sort of like dash them and, right off the bat
Yeah.
after one meeting, but I'll do the opposite of like, oh my God, this person's fantastic. And then I'll, um,
Yeah.
and that could be a fluke as well. But I tend to look for the positive. So I don't like to define that stuff. I just kind of like to go with my instincts in terms of actors, pretty much.
What do you think is a misconception about casting directors? I know that's kind of a stock question,
Well, that's a
but
lot now, especially after like the Me Too era and all that stuff. I think I cringe when I hear, "Oh, you have your casting couch." I'm just like, oh, give me a
yeah, yeah.
freaking break. Um, and look, how I toned that freaking down. I would have said something else. That also too, that we hold the keys to the gates, like your career is going to be made or broken by whether this casting director likes you, or they give you the job that's gonna, we're part of a creative team that sort of is creating something, or they're telling a story, and we want you to be involved. And I always say no. I never discovered, I don't discover people. I just open opportunities and give them stepping stones, and they sort of do it themselves. Actors do it
Yeah.
themselves. So I don't like, there was a casting director for years around here that was like, oh, I discovered so and so. She discovered everybody. Like, it's like, oh, okay. Oh, you discovered Brad Pitt. You lifted up a rock. I'm like, oh my God, there's Brad Pitt. It doesn't happen that way. It was around and auditioning, and you got seasoned, and you just gave him a job that sort of led to other things. That's all.
Now, do you like to work with like if you have the actor in the room, do you like to work
I
with
do.
them
I
or
do. I do like to take the director part of my title pretty
yeah.
seriously, which can
Yeah.
cause a little bit of problems with whoever you're working with sometimes. But I do like to redirect, mix it up, because especially like on indie films, because sometimes when schedules and money is so tight, you want somebody who can sort of be flexible and change ideas and whatnot. And a lot of times I'll just work with somebody to see if they're workable, if they get to
Yeah.
us. So
Yeah. Are they just putting on a show and then
right.
it's like,
And
and then you're like,
there are plenty of times
oh, he can't,
right, where
he
you
doesn't know
go,
how to, he doesn't know how to speak English. He only knew how to speak the words.
right, exactly, or something, or something like I plenty of times where I've looked at something after I've cast and go, she didn't do that in the room.
Yeah.
Huh?
They change everything. They change the thing that you cast them for. They're like, oh, well, I wanted to try something different. It's like,
You're right, right,
no,
right. You're
no,
like, no, that's why I liked you.
this is
'Cause
what we needed you
yeah,
for this.
yeah.
Don't change that. What do you find it's going to be? Because now that we're all going to self-tape and everything, how do you think, how do you think it's going to work with, giving direction? Or is it just going to be, I look
No,
at
I
it
mean,
and then
I
that's
think
it?
that's one of the casualties of self tapes.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, on our side, you kind of get to see what the people are like on film and whatnot. You kind of get an idea of who
Yeah.
they are beforehand. So I mean, I did go kicking and screaming with the whole self tape era because of that reason, because of not working with actors and not meeting actors. But it's actually, there's a lot of benefits to the actor and on our side to self tapes. So I think we have to
Yeah.
embrace it and move on. And I'm a big believer. I tell my the directors I work with, I don't like to do like callbacks or chemistry reads with on self tapes and Zoom, because to me it's a moot. It doesn't make any sense. It's very clunky, and you can't really get a sense of chemistry between people when they're on two separate screens and they're. So I
Yeah.
always tell my
Oh
directors,
yeah. No,
have
no.
faith.
Mm.
Something. You saw this self tape. You really like this person. Something sparked you to this actress or actor. Um, have faith in your directing abilities to get them to where you want to go to, or work with them. I mean, I think it really does test directors more, self tapes, than it does
Yeah.
being in a
Do,
room.
do you think like something like this, like Zoom, like, do you think that is the future where we're
No,
going to be, it's still be live, or you think it's just going to be self tapes?
I think it's going to be self tapes and with like maybe live callbacks. Oh,
Okay.
we love these four actors. Let's get them in a room.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
from there.
Interesting. Now, you've talked about the first 30 seconds. Now, as an actor, everyone knows about the importance of the first 30 seconds, but I wanted you to just
Well,
go a
you
little bit
really did your
further.
research, didn't you?
Of course, did. That's me.
Yeah, that's good.
I
That's
watch
good.
your films.
I
I
mean, I remember
read
saying that. I
everything.
just don't know where. And I'm like, oh my god.
I can tell you the interview if you want me to.
No, it's okay. So yeah, I'm
But
sorry.
yeah, so like, can you go, because you talked a little bit about it, but it was kind of just a short thing. I want you to talk a little bit more about it.
I mean, I do think in self tapes, the first 30 seconds are the most important, because I mean, if anybody on this side of the industry, other casting directors, and I'll get into trouble for this, or who say after releasing my tapes, say they look through every single tape all the way through, they're freaking lying.
Yeah.
You just can't. Number one, it's the
I
time
mean,
and the idea. So
I,
I'm sorry.
yeah, at one time I did like this short film, and we got, Don Buchwald's agency to send us actors. And I said, oh, let me, be in there. And we would watch the stuff. And it was like 10 seconds. You'd be like, no, no,
Yeah, no, that's what
no.
happens. Because, the way I always explain it is, back when you used to go into a room for an audition, yes, there are times. I mean, a lot of actors always say, no, the minute I walked into a room, they discounted me. It wasn't right. And yes, that has happened, because sometimes you have physical, requirements for a role. You have, height requirement, whatever it is, or sometimes you just get a feel of them, like, oh, that person's really not right. But in a room, the actor has 5 or 10 minutes to change the casting director's mind, and I have my mind has been changed.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
feel
it
that
can be.
right, but when you see a self tape and you go, oh, that person's not right off the bat, you kind of just go, okay, why sit through it? I don't have to sit through it.
Yeah.
Because
Oh yeah, we sit on a thing for like 20 to 30. We got a person that was like 45, and she was like the barmaid in I think one of the Pirates movies, and we're just like, what?
right.
It's like, what are we gonna do with this?
But you can do that, right? So,
This doesn't,
well,
this,
okay.
this
So
won't
that's
work.
why the first 30 seconds you have to grab whatever viewers, attention there is. You have to make sure that it's sort of spot on, that you give them something to keep watching for.
Mm.
I always say to actors, play to one person behind the screen. Don't
Mm.
make it more, always to give sort of that intimacy of the moment of auditioning. Um, um, all things that I go through on my self-tape class. And just it's so important because you got to keep people's attention. Because what happens is on the other side is, and again, it's all subjective opinion, but people go, oh, if they can't hold my attention for a 5-minute audition, how are they going to hold the attention of an audience for 2 hours?
Yeah.
In their perspective, that's a valid point. Again, it's a subjective point. All
Yeah,
depends on
because
the
I mean,
tape.
it's in a film, it's going to be cut together. They're not going to hold the screen on you and just,
But
unless
but
it's
but it but people
certain
think
scenes
that.
will
But
do
people
that.
think that way. You know,
Yeah,
people do
they
think
do.
that way. And what if the director wants to hold the camera for this 5-minute scene?
Yeah.
Do one long take.
Be David Lynch.
David Lynch. You know.
I
So,
don't care how long it is. It's
right, right,
gonna
right.
be as long as I want it to be. So yeah, they've talked about movement as well.
Hmm.
I find it hard, especially when you're self-taping to create,
Well,
how,
listen, there are a lot of it all depends on the requirements of whoever's asking for the self tapes, and I never understood the whole like make sure there's all these rules that some casting offices send out about self tapes, so sitting down and make sure I'm like 3 feet above. And that I'm like that just sort of
it paralyzes the act.
yeah, parallels the act. It's like one of those suburban like housing things where all the houses are exactly alike, and that's what you sort of get. There's no
Yeah.
sort of personality coming through.
Well, it's
So
it's the corporate mentality
yes,
that kind of
exactly.
came in
Kind
of
of
like back in the day, they used to spend like 30 minutes with actors sometimes.
yeah,
I
no,
mean,
you're right,
now
you're right.
there's no time. You're
And I
in,
always
you're
think,
out.
and I always look at self tapes like, is a person standing there sitting and they moving around? Like that gives me a sense of their personality and what they're, trying to do a little bit
Yeah.
more into than just sort of the cookie
Yeah.
cutter version. But I do like movement. I think movement and body language is a huge part of developing a character. It's funny because I watched broadcast news last night and I really
Mm.
noticed William Hurt, even the way he walked was different than very kind of blocky. He was kind of like to play this sort of not so bright guy who's kind of stumbling his way through success, and his walk just fit it perfectly, and it was really awkward. But a lot of actors define characters sometimes by defining their physical movements first, however whatever floats your
Yeah.
boat. But I really enjoy that. I always say actors act from head to toe, and everything in between. And I did steal that from Tyra Banks on America's Next Top Model when she said she was model for Next Top. I'm a huge Tyra Banks obsessed with her a little bit was, and she's right. In terms of modeling, she's right in terms of acting as well. So shout out to Tyra
Yeah.
Banks.
Yeah. No, I would say the same
So
thing.
as much as you can reflect the movement in your self tapes, I know sometimes you're limited in terms of space and whatnot, but
Yeah.
as I always say to actors, figure it out. That's not
Right.
my issue to figure out for you. That's what you need to figure out.
Well, now it opens up the new business if you go somewhere to tape it.
Yeah, I have issues with that in terms of for auditions. I hate when actors have to pay to make an audition. That's
Yeah.
why I always encourage actors to get your self tape, your home self tape kits and area all ready to go. So when you need to do it, you can just go do it without going to
Yeah.
a place.
It's just the thing that I think every actor has is, and you kind of alluded to it, is it's like, how do you know if they watched it? And the truth is
You don't.
you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't
You really
know.
don't.
You don't know if you're going to be that tape that gets in there. It's like, oh,
I'm
how
pretty
many we
good about
got?
at least. I'm pretty good about at least giving everything that comes in at least a peripheral watch.
Yeah.
I grew up Roman Catholic, so I'm loaded with guilt. So I always feel really guilty if I don't get to everybody's tape because I know they put the time and the effort and the energy and the willpower into self tapes, and it's not just sort of like, oh, I'm gonna go tape for 5 minutes. It's it's preparation. Actors prepare. That all that time, I don't. I'm a big one for not wasted energy, and I don't want to contribute to wasted energy in this world, I guess. That's why even after I cast a role, if I haven't looked at all the tapes after I cast it, I'll go through and just look, to see it, see if anybody sort of, oh, that person's pretty interesting, or she did a
Yeah.
great job.
Now you've been against. You said you don't like props because you've talked about how, like, if you look
I
at the
do
thing and be
really
like,
enjoy.
I'm looking at the books that are in the back. It's like, oh, what books does he read? Oh, he reads that. He reads
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
and then
I'm
it's
not a
like,
big prop person. Well, because self tapes should always be about the actor, and anything
yeah.
that kind of keeps the visuals and everything focused on the actor, the better.
Well, I'm
So
sure you've
anything,
seen the actor who comes in with like a jukebox and is going to start playing the music to the scene and have
Justin, I've
everything.
seen it all. I've seen it all. I've had it all. I've had a real gun brought in.
Oh my,
I've
okay,
I've dogs. I've had.
that's a little much. That's
I know.
like it's
Yeah.
like, well,
Well.
it's not loaded. It's like, yeah, but we don't know that.
Yeah.
But leave your gun, you know.
This was years and years ago before all the the craziness with
Yeah,
guns.
now you wouldn't even get in the door, but
But
that's
it still was disheartening. And I had just had an issue in my life with a gun in terms of whatever. I won't
yeah.
get into that. But yeah, so but personally, I have a very short attention span. And the minute somebody brings out a prop, my mind and my eyes go right to that.
Yeah.
And the prop, and I'm forgetting about the actor.
Or it's a Star Trek
Or,
edition, and they come in with a Star Trek uniform, and you're like, "Where'd they get that?" Yeah,
right. What the
it
hell? How
takes
did
away. Yeah, like,
you have that?
did,
Did you get
did,
that? And then I'm asking those questions in my mind, and all of a sudden I'm not focusing on what the actor's doing.
although you talked about that almost famous dress, somebody came in with that, and you were like, "Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't very good, but
Right.
I
Well,
brought her in anyways."
because that show I did, the show Cold Case we're referring to, was so also about the time period and the tone. Each episode was a very different tone, and
Yeah,
that costume, although I do hate costumes, just really gave her something special in terms of she really kind of captured the tone of the piece,
yeah.
just
No,
by the visuals.
just
And I also gave her a callback. Like I always say, she wasn't very good. Or she wasn't. I shouldn't say she was not my favorite audition of that
she's
character.
crying right now.
But I really wanted the producers and the writers to see that and sort of make sure they
Yeah.
captured the tone of the episode, because it really perfectly captured it in my mind.
So she was kind of like a demo for the people.
Don't put it that way, but sure.
I love what you said about how actors need time, especially when they get multiple scenes. That is important. There's a lot
Yeah.
of times you get maybe 3 days at most,
Right.
and you want to get in
3 days is
you
a
want to,
long time.
yeah, yeah, it is. But you've talked about how you like to give them
I try
a
to,
week if you
sometimes,
can.
however, sometimes circumstances, intervene and I can't. But if it's a film, I like to give them at least a week,
Yeah,
to sort of live with it, read it, most
yeah,
importantly, read it, live it, everybody was wondering
yes,
when they see actors on a movie, they go, oh my God, they were so good. Well, they also had time with it.
yeah,
I mean, I would love to see, the actors' auditions compared to sort of what they do on screen. Sometimes it's going to be completely different,
yeah,
um, and better because they've had time to sort of really dig into the character, dig into the scenes,
yeah.
interact with other actors. But yeah, I like to give that. But sometimes there's not. When you do an episodic, which is a much faster pace, I need to hire somebody tomorrow. So here's the auditions. Come on in. And then I did a show for Nickelodeon called Hollywood Heights, which was sort of a take on a telenovela and also shot like a soap opera. And so the actors, would literally
I
shoot
researched it.
20, 30 pages, and then have to memorize 20, 30 pages for the next day. So memorization skills were super important for that. So what I would do is I would literally send out the appointments at 5 o'clock the day before and have them come in like 10 o'clock, the next day to see
Yeah,
how well actors memorized.
yeah, it's a good point. Do you find actors mistake positive? They're I find a lot of actors are naive and they mistake that by calling it, I've always got to be positive. What do you think about that?
Explain that. Explain. Go a little bit more into that. Sorry.
I mean, if I say something, if concerns about an actor or something, they're like, oh, I don't want to hear that. I only want to be positive 100%. And I'm like, sometimes I think that feels like it's just naivety. Yes, you need to
Oh,
be
right. In
positive,
terms of
but you
you
need to be
give
concerned.
feedback to actors.
But
You
yeah,
know,
feedback and all everything.
well, listen, it all depends on where the criticism, if it's criticism, is
Yeah,
coming from in terms of and how it's delivered, and also what's the motivation behind it in terms, in terms of, I think I try to, and again, I'm human. It's probably not as happened all the time, but I think I probably had a pretty high percentage of any sort of criticism or talk to an actor is usually more creative and comes from a creative place to
yeah,
sort of make the story about what's going on. And but I am the one sometimes casting director to sort of, in fact, I was coaching a friend with something like that, and he has an odd habit sometimes of, he always has this sort of smirk on his face. And it's great
mm,
in person, it's great because it's,
yeah.
but when he's doing sort of a dramatic scene, it was still there. I'm like, dude, you have to control that
Yeah.
because you have to figure that out.
That'll kill the scene.
Because that'll
Yeah,
kill the
it's like
scene,
that. That it's
and
like
you're not
you're
gonna get hired,
doing.
and you're not gonna move forward in the job that you want to move forward in because,
Yeah,
yeah. So be aware of that, and and again, I don't think it's something that you can't get over, if you can, but we all have sort of unconscious things that we do, and not aware of it, that are though those are the always hardest, I think, for actors to get over. But I also think it's probably the most important to point out,
yeah.
because that sometimes they really block people from getting jobs. You know,
Well, or some actors will spike the camera or something with their eyes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah.
Spike the camera. It's when you're teaching your class, do you find it harder to give criticism than you did back in maybe the 90s, the 2000s? Do you think that is something that has changed?
No, I mean, listen, I think it kind of, yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I think we're going through a period where everybody's so overly sensitive about things.
Yes.
So I do find my choice of words I have to sort of control.
Yeah.
I'm also one of those people that sometimes will speak before they think, and which is, I think, a positive and a negative at the same time. So you always know how I feel. But yeah, I mean, I think I have changed in terms of, I don't know if I've changed it in terms of class itself specifically to that,
Mhm.
but I do think now, especially in the past 5 years, have sort of, you know, reapproached how I maybe would share a negative opinion,
Mhm.
and
Because back in the day, Stella Adler, she just they'd be like,
it,
well, why didn't Hamlet kill him? And the next day she brings in like a corpse of a pig and says, cut into it. Now
yeah,
you know how hard it is to kill. So like that wouldn't fly today.
that would apply today.
Or Sandy Meisner, who said, yeah, I just don't think we work well together. Why don't you leave? you
Yeah,
know
no, I'm a little, but I'm also a little bit. I mean, it sounds like, I mean, I haven't met these people in person, so, but it sounds
yeah.
like that I'm a little bit more tolerant than that. It takes a
Yes.
while for me, but there are. I mean, listen, I have students, and it's my students. It's one-on-one, and I've been doing it now for 2 years, 3 years, I think, and there's all types. I mean, there's all
Yeah.
types of people everywhere, so you have to sort of adjust. I mean, the reason why I'm sort of hesitating because I literally have a student right now that I just want to be like, oh, forget it, I can't deal with you. Just the questions and the thing, and then,
Yeah.
it's like I'm
It's
like,
like just get in
everybody
the
else in the
boat.
world has gotten this,
Yeah. Get in the boat and
one out of
row.
300. So I'm not the problem. You're the problem.
Yeah.
Um, but but you don't want to be,
No, you
again,
can't.
I mean,
They're
I do think
trying.
we try, and I do think, in some ways, in this industry, especially in this side of it, we have to be a little bit more delicate, a little bit more intentional, because again, these actors' professions are based a lot of it on hopes and dreams, and the
Yeah.
outlook on life, and sort of this positivity of achieving this, this goal, this great goal, you know, and I don't want to be a dream crusher. And I feel
Yeah.
like sometimes like that would be, I would never, ever, ever tell anybody they shouldn't act. That's not my job to do that.
Yeah.
my job is always like, you know what, I think you can improve your chances of achieving your dream by doing this, or maybe try that, or do this, and see how that works for you, or
Yeah.
finding, that's how I feel like my job should be. But I would never, ever, ever, no matter how much I dislike an actor, and I use the word actor in terms of both male and female, um, I would never tell them to stop pursuing their dreams or stop acting.
Yeah.
That's
And that's admirable. All right, so that's enough about the acting stuff. I One of the things that I'm really fascinated that you did is you
uh,
casted Love and Sex.
oh my
Now
God.
I can
Yeah.
remember that movie. My mother, used to watch it. I'm
Oh,
where
good.
we all have HBO. Like right now, I've got The Shining in the background here. Like movies are just
Me too. It's my
inundated
favorite
through
movie. Did we talk about this?
every. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. But like we just have, so movies are just like a part of my
Right.
life. So
I'm
so
so happy
anyways,
you weren't
yes.
feeling about Love and Sex. That was great. That was a great.
I
It was
mean,
one of the best.
Famke Janssen and John Favreau. So what was that like casting? I just want to know
It
kind of
was. It was going through. It was a little bit up and down. I mean, I was on the movie for like a year. Back
hmm.
when we could do that. Spend a year on a project. Now we're all unions, and they look down at that. It's a whole. But
2 days.
I'll never forget. I met Valerie, the writer director, who's still a really great friend of mine, and she's fantastic and lovely. And the humor you see in that movie is exactly her. Like it's just no getting around that.
Yeah.
She's wonderful. I met her at a dinner party thrown by my old bosses that I wasn't going to go to, and I always tell the story. Thinking if you do your research, I've heard it before about not waiting for things to happen to you to go out and sort of
Yeah.
try to make things happen, or meet people and open up your doors of opportunities. So I met her at a dinner party. We talked nothing, and I'll never forget. She was like, "So what do you do?" I go, "I'm an independent casting director." She goes, "Oh, really?" She goes, "You know what? I love you. I want you to cast my movie." And I literally said to her, "Oh, you got a movie? Okay, sure, whatever." And that's the kind of relationship we started right away. With that's just sarcastic jabs and fun and all that stuff. She's why I said, "You don't believe me?" I said, "Please, everybody and their brother, from the doctor to the guy who's bagging groceries at the valves over here, everybody in this town's got a movie." She goes, "I can't believe you don't believe me." And I was like, "I'll believe it when I have a script and a check." Next day, I had a script and a check, and I had to get approved. And the thing about that movie, which was great, was, I mean, the best thing about the movie for me was working with Valerie. Um, and it had gone through some sort of process before I got on board, was the reason why she wanted to bring me on board. I think it was for a company that was head by um, a person she did not get along with, who was not nice to her, who was, you know, some can say was male chauvinist and sort of didn't have a good perspective on female directors or females and any sort of power position, especially working with him, um, allegedly. And yeah, I mean, like, and so it had gone through some process. I think like Terry Hatcher was at one
Mm,
point doing it, but that deal, they structured a really, really bad deal, which gave her a lot of outs, um,
mm,
and which she then took. Then Cameron Diaz came in and read before my best friend's wedding, and that I think Valerie wanted to hire her, but the company did not. And then my best friend's wedding opened, and then she was like the it girl for everything. And they were like, "Oh, let's go back and make her the offer." And they're like, "She's not doing this movie now. Forget it. She's getting offers like left and right. Why would you didn't want her then? Why would you want her now? That whole thing." And I
yeah.
don't blame them at all, for doing that. So then we went through the process, and we got Famke, who, I love her in this movie. I think it's one of those things where she got to show up that she's actually really funny,
Yeah.
and she's very tall. She was a model. She was a Bond girl. Bond. What was her name? Xena on a top.
Xenia Onatop.
Xena on a top. Yeah,
Xenia
it was great.
Onatop.
It was like the best Bond name for Bond girl name ever. And she was really great. And then we were casting for the male lead, and Valerie, it's based on a real relationship that she had. And in a relationship, she was always taller. And I think I'm not talking out of turn, but it was based on a relationship she had. And still to this day, a best friendship she has with a director named Adam Rifkin, who's a great director in his own right. And Adam is shorter than her. So Valerie had this sort of idea that, whoever was playing opposite Famke, and Famke's tall, just had to be shorter. Just had to be shorter. And we were having a hard time in terms of finding somebody that felt right, that sort of did it, that actually was good, that was, and then I
You're not
think it
going to
was,
bring in Ben Affleck.
well, but then
Is that right?
I mean, Famke's agent said, well, why are we not considering John Favreau because he's tall? And I'm like, I know I have to get Valerie over that. And I literally said to her, I said, this short thing is only important in your own mind. In other words, people watching this are not going to say, oh, he has to be shorter. It's just not going to happen. And if you take out one joke here and another joke over there, nobody's going to know the difference. And so she opened herself up to that, and she met John and obviously fell in love right away. And he was on board. And yes, I almost got let go of that movie because, not because of Valerie, because they brought on, this is some inside dirt, I guess. The head of the production he just did not like Valerie for some reason. So he brought on.
So he's just screwing with you.
Yeah.
With the project.
He started screwing with the project, and he brought on a producer that he was basically meant to sort of like just oversee her and sort of contradict all of her decisions and whatnot.
The Hatchet Man.
The Hatchet Man. And we were casting the Ann Magnuson role. And it only worked like 1 or 2 days because it was all shot in her office. And I had already been in the movie for a year. They paid me all their money. And I was obviously sticking around because of Valor, but because I wanted to see the movie through. And we made an offer. We made an offer to marry Tyler Moore. I won't forget. And but they were only offering her scale for a day. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's married Tyler Moore. Like, well, she hasn't done a movie since like Ordinary People. I was like, what's the difference? I said, guys, all she has to do is go, look at my 7 Emmys on my mantelpiece, and you're offering me scale? Mary Tyler Moore, for God's sakes. She's not going to do this.
No.
So, of course, I'm obligated to make the offer because that's what they wanted to make it. And I'm like, I call the agent. I get completely embarrassed. I'm like, oh, they're like, oh, I'm like, I know. I'm basically like, just pass. I mean, don't. They're like, she's never gonna. I know.
So when you were talking to the agent, you were kind of like,
well, because
I
Mary Tyler
understand
Moore,
that
it's like, it's like, oh, let's
Yeah.
get Brad Pitt here scale. It's like for an independent movie that's not like, wasn't. Valerie hadn't done anything in terms of what, so it wasn't like a hot director, like, hot script from Sundance Lab or anything like that. It wasn't anything like that. So then I get a call that the Mary was passing, and then Valerie called and I said she's gonna pass, and she goes, okay, and she knew she was gonna pass. She goes, well, who's next? And I said, well, they all want to make an offer to Anne Margaret. I said, but Anne Margaret's not going to do it for scale either. It's Anne Margaret, for God's sake. She's been a movie star forever. It's not going to do it. She's all right. Well, listen, I got a call with them next. I mean, I have to go up front. I got to call them. She's, I'll tell them all this stuff and see what they want to do. So I just called them, and then about 15, 20 minutes later, I get a call from this producer guy who shall remain nameless, just ripping me a new one. Like, how dare you tell the director first? This is not protocol. I'm like, protocol? What? No, we got to know this things before she does. And like, just like going off of me. And I finally said, are you done? I said, fire me. I said, fire me. Go ahead, fire me. I don't care. Like, what do I care? I said, I have all your money. And I said, I know how cheap you are. So you're gonna have to spend more money to get another casting director. I said, and good luck with that. I said, so fire me. I said, listen, I don't know who you are really. I said, you've only been on this project for like a week and a half. I said, I've been with this project for a year. I know more about it than you do. I guarantee I do. So, you can hem and haw all you want, but I have a relationship with Valerie, and I'm going to tell her everything first all the time. So either get over that fact or fire me. I mean, you have a choice. So, and then he's like, just can you try to let us know beforehand? I'm like, no. Valerie's my first call with everything. So
that's great. That's great that you stuck to your guns. You didn't just like go, oh, I'm so sorry. I did not know that.
Oh God, no, I'm not that person. I'm still not that person.
No, I know you're not.
And I actually think it's important for the cast not to be that person, because I think sometimes that actually screws with the creativity of a project. And you hired me for a reason. This is the reason. that I'm going to stand up and
Yeah.
fight for sometimes actors that I believe in. Um, and so, yeah. And so at the end of the day, that I love that movie. I love everything about that movie.
Well, it's
Um,
so real. It
it's
it
so
feels
real for
real.
Valerie. Well, it wasn't the original version. It was funny because apparently, again, to say scoop about the movie, and I hope everybody's going to be really bored, but watch the movie, you'll see, and maybe get.
Yeah, it's a good
But
movie. Watch it, although it's hard to find.
but they cut a version of that movie outside of Valerie's hands that was not good.
Of
And
course.
so she cut her version of the movie without them knowing and then sent that version to Sundance. And then it got in.
Wow.
And they were mad. Because once you send that, you can't really alter the movie that much, or because
Yeah.
that's what they said yes to.
But good
And
on her to actually make
yeah,
that
and then
move,
they took
because
and then he was so mad. And I'm like, why is he mad? I got in Sundance. Like, I don't understand why he's mad. But he got mad, and then he set up like dual screenings to test the movie and to test both versions. And hers got like an A, and his has got like a D. And he was still mad. Like, he still wanted to release the bad version of it, but it just goes to show
just in spite of it, just in spite of it.
just in spite of her.
Ugh.
That was, and that goes to show the importance of a really good editor. I mean,
Blade
a good
Runner.
editor for film and even TV is key. Is key.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's a story. I mean, Blade Runner, Once Upon a Time in America. This is kind of what happened, but I'm glad that Valerie took it into her own hands and said,
yeah, she's a
no,
great woman. She's a very funny writer. She's
throwing
very
it
funny
out there.
person. And go see that movie. That's one of the highlights of my career. Love and Sex. It just really was. So.
Great film.
Yeah.
Another thing, I haven't seen this, or I may have seen it. I just, The Space Between Us, 1999. Now you can't even get it on streaming because there's another movie that's called that. I hate that when a movie's called something the same thing, and it's like that version no longer exists. Like Crash, Cronenberg's Crash,
I haven't seen that
barely
movie
even
in
exists.
such a long time. That was another good. That was a very early movie for me, early on, and that came to me because my best friend is an actor, and he did this movie called Roadkill that Matt Lutwile, is director of that movie, directed. And Matt wanted to bring me on as a cast director, but they weren't paying any money. It was a whole thing. It was so, but we always remained friendly, and sort of I just helped a little bit with that. So when this movie came around, Matt hired me, and we, Eric's in the movie, and basically it's based on his life. So in San Francisco, and that was fun. That's another nice cast.
Yeah, Jeremy Sisto is in that. He's been in 13. Somebody. Those were one of the two I kind of wanted to hear a little bit about.
Those two, that's so funny.
I love it. Yeah, Love and Sex. When I saw that, I was like, oh, I remember that movie.
Not my favorite. My favorite movie of all time that I cast was a movie called Buddy Boy.
I looked a little bit at it, but I couldn't find. Well, I found some of it, but I didn't have the time to watch
the whole
entire
movie on YouTube. It's like a YouTube movie, but it's.
I watched some of the. I mean, is that's what 99?
Well, it's the same year. It's the same year as Love and Sex, I think, or was it Latter Days? I can't forget.
Love and Sex is 2000. Well, they probably filmed it in 1999, so you're right. It's probably closer to that time. But
Love and Sex is 2000. Really, I thought it was later than that.
I thought it was 2000.
I had two films at Sundance. I'm trying to think of what two was Buddy.
Maybe it was 2001.
Because Buddy Boy go to Sundance? Buddy Boy was in the Venice Film Festival. I know they gave like a 10-minute standing ovation to it or something like that. So,
but I was impressed with how how well it was directed, even even on an indie budget back then. Yeah, Buddy Boy. Yeah,
that's just everybody. It's so weird. It's so bizarre. It's so like out there that it was so much fun to cast. I mean, I remember meeting. There was a producer, a woman named Gina Mangachi, who's again great. I think I can't stress enough how many great people have had the pleasure of working with. And I met her. I forget, it was a place called Cafe Med up on Sunset, and I walk in, and we got referred to by an agency to cast this movie. And Gina is an Italian from Philadelphia. I'm Italian from New Jersey. And the first thing I think I said to her after, hello, how are you, was I said, I think I have to tell you that if I don't cast this movie, I will stalk you. I love it so much that I will not take no for an answer. And she was like, "Isn't it great?" And I was like, "Yeah." And and from there was, off to the races.
Yeah.
Great, great time. There's a few scripts like that I've responded to over, the years that I just sort of like,
I will stalk you.
I'm compelled to write this script, to cast this movie.
Although it might be hard now today. It's not people like, oh yeah, we got a police warrant around here.
Yeah, no, right.
Stalk you. I was like, I was
When
kidding.
I got a stalker who wants to cast my movie and he won't say no. He won't take no for an answer.
Like, what's the story of Catwoman? What's her name
Sean Young
from Blade Runner? Yeah, Sean Young showing up in
Yeah,
a full costume,
right. And she filmed it.
and yeah, she filmed it and everything. It was just like,
yeah.
I mean, she was originally going to be, I think, in the first Batman, and then she got hurt, and she's like, I want to be in this here. And the stories of Tim Burton hiding under the desk, like, so she won't see him because she came to the office in the costume.
In the office, full Batwoman, Catwoman costume.
And then it was supposed to be Annette Bening, and then she got hurt, and then they found Michelle Pfeiffer.
I do think Michelle Pfeiffer and as Catwoman in that Batman Returns is one of the best.
Oh yeah,
performances by an actress in the past 50 years. It really.
I mean, the lines she's got that she delivers with such gusto.
Real, like you kind of understood her. She, she had depth. You kind of were afraid of her and hated her and loved her all at the same time. It was.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's really done Catwoman like that with that hate or love. Like you said, that's a good point.
Because I think everybody sort of focuses on a little bit too much in terms of on the wrong things with that persona. That persona really is. I mean, it is sort of the antithesis of Batman. So there's all these sexual dynamics going on, but it's also it's also a perverted dynamic. And I think that's the brilliance of Tim Burton's first two movies, is that they're kind of subversive and perverted.
Yeah.
In a sense, which was
they are. I mean, it's amazing looking at, like, back at that time period. I mean, they got into the trouble with the whole McDonald's things.
Right. Also,
the movie came out.
Batman's not a real hero here. I mean, if you look at him strictly as a hero, as a superhero, it's not.
It's Superman.
You want Superman. You don't want Batman.
Or Spider-Man. Spider-Man relates more to kids.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that's where everybody goes off the rails with those movies, is when they just don't.
Yeah. Wow.
Concentrate on the subject at all.
You saw what they did after Tim Burton, and it was very sad.
Very sad. Thank God for
they lost.
What's his name?
Yeah, I mean, it took 10 years.
The director, Christopher Nolan. Thank God for Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, it took 10 years for that movie to I
haven't seen
they had to forget about it.
I haven't seen the Robert Pattinson one yet, although
you need to.
It's right here, and I could not. The whole Ben Affleck period. I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is the worst."
They kind of missed. They kind of missed the point.
I'll never cast.
Yeah, Zack Snyder hates, All right, so let's move on to. I watched your film Glassjaw. What inspired you to write this film?
Nothing, actually. I hate to say that, but I was commissioned to write that by the lead actor and producer, Lee. Very nice person. I wrote something about a year before that got made, and I had a screening of it, and he really, really enjoyed it. He had written a previous script called Glassjaw and sent it to me, and then wanted me to rewrite it, and I said no numerous times. And then he kind of kept being persistent, and so I told him I'd do it after we could close a deal, and I told him it was going to be page 1 rewrite. And then I felt really, really bad, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to turn this boxing movie into an alien invasion drama. Like, that would be where I would go with this, because I don't, again, I enjoyed Rocky. I enjoyed some other shows, but I'm not a big boxing fan. I don't know that much about it. So I was like,
it reminded me a lot of that movie Southpaw that Gyllenhaal did.
Yes, I heard that. Although I've never seen that movie, but I guess it explores similar themes. I don't know.
It's very similar in some ways.
But then I just kind of asked him, like, give me 5 things that you want to keep in, to sort of preserve. I didn't want to, like, I mean, Lee was writing it, wanted to make this for himself as a vehicle for him to act in, a la Rocky kind of thing. And
You don't want to turn it into like
I didn't
Twin
want to turn
Peaks,
it
like he's not
into
really
again like an
there.
alien.
He's not
Yeah,
really there.
I wanted him to enjoy the experience a little bit too, because it is his movie.
Like Crimes and Misdemeanors, where he shows him the film and he pretty much turned him into like Stalin and the
right.
I forget his name. But Woody Allen's showing
Showing Martin
a
Landau.
MASH,
Alan Alda.
Alan Alda's in there, and he's showing him. He's like, "What are you doing? What? This isn't what I want." That would have been you with your. You'd be like,
It would have
"What
been
is
all of a sudden we're in,
you're not really there. You're not really there."
in Antarctica, and it's another version of The Thing.
There you go.
Which I enjoy. So yeah,
That's a great
then
film.
I got hired to write the movie, and I did, and I mean, Lee raised $1.2, I think, million off of that script. So
Good.
go figure.
I noticed the announcer was a former wrestler that I watched. His
The
wrestling name
announcer?
was Alex Riley. Yeah, and Glassjaw. Kevin Robert Riley.
Okay, how that came about.
No. How did that come about?
I'll never forget, because in the script, they're scripted as off screen.
Yeah.
But not there. And so I didn't cast them, and
really?
off screen, and all of a sudden I'll never forget, I get a call at 7:30 from the director, Jeff, who's very great guy. He's like, "Yeah, we need to cast these guys." And he goes, "And we're doing it tomorrow." I'm like, "It's 7:30. He's like, "Yep." I'm like, "Dude, you got to give me a little more heads up for that, and so, I called up agents who represent a lot of like announcer people, and we wanted, it's a very definite rhythm and language, and so hopefully, and so that's how that came about. And he just was there, and was like, "Do you have any tape?" And we showed Jeff, "Hire him. He's good tomorrow. There you go. Let's go." Boom. That was it.
Wow.
Okay, that does it for part 1 of my interview with Michael Testa. Once again, you can find him at Michael Testa Casting. He also teaches acting and auditioning. So if you want to work with him, I would suggest you direct message him. I want to thank him personally for being on the show, and check out some of his films. Check out Glassjaw, and tune in for part 2 for next week. And as always, you can find me at Justin Yance. The best way to get me is to contact me directly, on my Instagram or on Facebook. And I thank you for listening. And if you liked this, please give us a review, a shout out. Anything helps. And I will see you next time on the DMF.